Do you think that your card is blocked?
No,
No. And I agree. Why you don't think it's blocked?
because I'm in control of it. I can see it in the app. I'm still transacting.
Right? Exactly these points. So if you are receiving messages that your card is blocked, that your card is going to expire, that stop and say this is a fraud.
Welcome everyone. I'm Theo. I'm the Chief Customer Experience Officer at Bank of Valletta. And today's episode, you don't want to miss it. Why? Because I'm joined by someone who actually I think has the longest job title in the bank, and also one of the most important, I would say. He's the Group Chief Anti-Financial Crime Officer and the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. Quite a long title, right?
Yes, which brought a number of responsibilities, challenges and issues.
Nice. Which basically, just to keep it simple for those that they are watching us, if someone is doing something shady with your money, this guy is on it. His name is Ryan, and today he's pulling back the curtain on something most of us think that we understand, but actually not. That kind of scams that they are happening quietly, that do sound like they are coming from your bank, and actually they empty your account before you even notice. So, Ryan, welcome to the BOVCast, and seriously, what do we need to know from you today?
So Theo, thanks. And indeed, we are living in a particular time where potentially we are being targeted to be scammed. And when I say potentially, I am more often than not. If we have to take out our phones just now, and we just spend 2 minutes searching platforms, social media, potentially, most likely, you will find a post, something, an advert, which is fraudulent. Equally, if you spend or if you double the time looking in social media, potentially you will not find something highlighting or educating you or creating awareness about the particular scam. So this is exactly the objective of these few minutes that we'll be speaking about. Creating awareness, creating education, creating the understanding that me and you can be scammed. Right? There's no titles, there's no people, there's no particular education, social groups, which will not be scammed. The risk is so huge that we need to be able to understand what's happening out there to identify between a genuine bank communication, because yes, banks, Bank of Valletta do send genuine messages, Bank of Valletta do call people, right? And having someone else sending you fraudulent messages, potentially with the same number that Bank of Valletta sends messages to, potentially with the same number that Bank of Valletta used to call you in the past weeks and days, so that we will go through a number of highlights to start understanding and identifying how we are looking for scams.
Let's call it out. So, do I get this right? Scams is not only for older people or people that they are not advanced with tech, right?
I would say it's exactly, to some of people's surprises, exactly the opposite of that. And in fact, the younger generation, and I will explain why, are being even defrauded even more. Yet again, there's a number of different frauds which will go around. So I'm just speaking in general, right? And this is for the reason that the younger generation nowadays are more on social media, more on technology, more on their phones, more on their platforms. So that is why we are being so bombarded with these fraudulent messages. Yet again, if then we highlight certain specific of fraud, I'm just pinpointing, for example, Romance fraud, then it is the older generation which are being more, or investment fraud, which are being more targeted for the older generation, for the simplest reason that generally wealth is more on those older people rather than the younger generation. So nowadays, even with this kind of examples, it's already saying that fraudsters are targeting people very wisely, and not just randomly.
Very wisely. I'll keep that. So let's break this down like we are talking to our parents, right? You get a text on your phone that it says, hey, it's from your bank. It's got your name in it, your logo, the bank's logo, and the link.
And the bank's number.
And the bank's number. And my question is, what happens next? And how do they get us like that?
Agreed. So let's start with that. Very good example, a very tangible example, something that is happening to us. This week, I kept on receiving messages that I have a parcel being received to my address. I bought something online, so I'm awaiting something. Very true. So this is very tempting, right? To check where my parcel is, where my purchase is. So this is something that potentially, and why we are receiving these messages, because potentially we are buying things online nowadays, right? So let's say we have our parents, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and they are receiving a message which looks like that this message has been received from Bank of Valletta, and say it looks like. Why? Because from the very easiest way to identify people, if I call you, tell you, how do I identify that it's me calling you?
By
By the number.
the number.
Right.
Right?
So this is very simple, by the number. So you will see the same number that potential Bank of Valletta sends you, the 99180001. Let me highlight it. In a more technical way, it's called spoofing the number. Let's just break down this to a very simplistic way. Nowadays, technology...
For everyone who's watching, spoofing the number, be aware about that.
So
It might save you thousands of euros.
it's very important. So how people are doing that? To very simple things. Even me and you can do this. You just download an app. We change the number that I want you to see when I call you, and instead of seeing my number, you will see the other number that I put in.
Are you suggesting like to start creating like a side income?
No, definitely not. We are here actually to save that, but I'm explaining because people might think that the bank can do anything in order to save this. Definitely banks cannot do anything, Bank of Valletta cannot do anything to save this. What people can do, what we can do is educate people to identify the scam. So let's go back to example. Parents received a message. How we're going to identify potentially that message is in the same thread of messages that Bank of Valletta usually send. However, one important element, and this is super important, right? Bank of Valletta do send messages, right? However, one of the main differences when we send messages to our customers to potentially informing them that someone has deposited money to an account, that you have received a mobile payment from someone, which is nowadays is normally, right? It's happening on a daily basis. Or else that you have made a transaction outwards, sending money you to somewhere else. However, when we send messages, we never send a link to click on this. And this is where all the red flags, all the red highlights will start being able to see, okay, this is a fraud. This I should stop and not click on this message. Why? For the very simple reason. Let me ask you a question now. Today you're doing the questions, let me do a question. Do you think that your card is blocked?
If my card
Is blocked? If your credit card, debit card is blocked?
No.
No. And I agree. Why you don't think it's blocked?
Because I'm in control of it. I can see it in the app. I'm still transacting.
Right? Exactly these points. I just hope you repeat them in this series, you keep on saying them. So if you are receiving messages that your card is blocked, that your card is going to expire, that you made fraudulent transactions and you need to click, or else that someone will call you in the coming minutes, that stop and say, this is a fraud. This is how I'm explaining this to my inner circle, to my parents, to my family. Right? A very simplistic way of doing things. Right?
So
Bank of Valletta will never call you asking you that there was a fraudulent transaction. So you need to put your phone on flight mode. So you need to go into banking, in your mobile banking, and start generating certain OTPs, certain codes in a very simplistic way. And then it is the time where potentially you already defrauded. So once you click on that, once you receive the call, and once you start doing things directed by who is there, mind you, speaking in Maltese, in a very good Maltese, that is the time when either it is too late, or else you should stop there and then you call the bank telling what's happening. Okay? So this is, I would say, the focus of what we are doing.
I love this because this is very, very practical, right? So let me get this straight. Bank of Valletta will never send you a link. Is that correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
Especially in a message in a message telling you that your card is going to expire, click on this link, that your card was blocked, exactly to what you said, because you're seeing your card, because you just used your card, so there's nothing wrong in that, right? There's not to receive a message, and potentially even receiving a message telling you that in the coming minutes, someone will call you. If Bank of Valletta want to call you, they just calling you, informing you about something, not telling you to go into mobile banking and to do this and that.
All right. To your example, there is a friend of a friend, right, who got a call from her bank. It wasn't BOV, and they said her account was compromised. She was so panicked that she gave her one-time password to the fraudster, right? And after 3 minutes, boom, 10K lost. What she should have done differently, practically? You are in a meeting, right? Because I guess that fraudsters are playing a lot with psychology, with the urgency.
Even with time, Theo, so we have to see the analytics of what's happening. Certain messages are being sent between 10 to 1. This is the time when potentially you are working, is the time potentially you are doing the most hectic things during your day, right? Potentially you're doing an errand, potentially you are doing in a meeting, potentially you are traveling, so you need to act quickly. So yet again, fraudsters are doing not just randomly, but targeting these analytics technologies being used, both for the good things and both for the bad things, right? So this example, what you should do, let's link it to what you said earlier, right? If someone calls me asking to produce an OTP, a number, a password, that is what an OTP is, let's not give. It's simple, just hang up, right? Authentic calls, Bank of Valletta calls, other financial institution calls, they will not ask you to do an OTP and to give them that. Very simple. Other institutions, Bank of Valletta will not send you messages telling you to click on that because your card is fraud, or because the transaction is fraud, or because your card is going to expire. That should be done differently. Next thing that she has to do, and I would say do, right, is to call Bank of Valletta to inform her what had happened, to be able to stop all her cards, to stop all her accounts, to block them, not to be able for fraudsters to take more money.
All right. I think this is a fantastic piece of advice that everybody needs to be aware. So, just to keep it clear, based on the data we see that most of the fraudulent transactions are happening between 10 a.m.
I just give an example, right? I just giving the messages, right? Because they can say, and yet again, I'm speaking very generally, because yet again, if I have to highlight, for example, Romans fraud, it's exactly on the contrary. It's more transactions happening in the late in the afternoon or in the evening. So this is all about the dynamics of particular fraud. If you see investments, for instance, there's no particular time. You keep on sending money to these investments, something good to highlight. And this is very important between just about investments. Some things are too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that even that on its own, it's a red flag. That is something that it cannot happen.
I love what you're saying, because that brings me to my next question. Let's say if we want to make this very, very practical, like our parents, are listening to our conversation, what might be some practical tools for a person, who is not that familiar with all these frauds that are going on? What might be the top 3 red flags, or that scammy behaviors, tone of voice that we all need to be aware that, the moment we see a message or we receive a call, what might be some practical tools, that pops up in my mind in order to filter it and say like, hey, this is
Definitely.
quite.
So let's start, I would say top 3 on a number of highlights, right? Not just on car fraud, because we just speak on car fraud at this moment in time. So on car fraud, I believe you have to answer the call if you need to know if it's a true call or not, correct? So having just to hang up on everything, I don't think that is the ideal way, because Bank of Valletta may call you asking you for some supporting documentation, for example.
Right.
So this is something that we are obliged to do, and customers are also obliged to send us certain information on a risk-based approach accordingly. So hanging up on every call, I don't think is the right thing. However, then when you start the conversation, you might start listening to this individual in Maltese or in English, it much depends on who is calling you, telling you that your card has been blocked, right? The first question will be why my card has been blocked, right? And you need to do this process in order for the card to be unblocked. Once you are hearing this, then hang up.
All right.
You're just wasting money and you are increasing the risk of being defrauded. Because Bank of America will never ask you that your card has been blocked and you know how to do this and this. Potentially, they might ask you, visit one of the branches and we'll speak, but not to go into mobile banking and do this and that.
Yeah.
Right? The second point, and I think we mentioned it already earlier on, if something is working well, why you are thinking that it's not working well? So if you just, I was speaking with someone, it was defrauded unfortunately, and he told me, I just use my card to purchase some things from one of the local stores. So my question was, so why you thought that your card is blocked? You just used it 5 minutes before. These very simple things that once you are hearing them, right, the other thing that is going around at the minute is that there was a fraudulent transaction and they will call you to stop the transaction, which is very, I would say, particular, right? Why? Because fraudsters are even taking over on the risk themselves. And let me explain. So fraudsters know that we are creating this
Taking over on the risk.
of themselves. And let me explain. Because potentially there are fraudsters listening to us, Theo, in this podcast, right?
Hi, fraudsters.
Listening to us, what I'm saying, what you are saying, what do people look for. So they want to be even a bit of agile, and they want to be even interesting to speak with, right? So they will say, okay, so Ryan is saying this, so let's make it even for people to really believe us, right? So they are telling us exactly in this minute, right? You have a fraudulent transaction, you are receiving a message, we will call you to stop that. And you might say, okay, that is good, that is what I heard earlier, this is what I saw, what I chatted, so I will take this call because it's important. And then it is where the fraud is starting. So the fraud is starting by creating a story that a transaction happened in your account is fraudulent. So this is where the real risk of fraud will start. When you receive that. So once you receive that message, and after a few minutes, you receive a call from the same number, even if it's from the Bank of America, then I say on a risk-based approach, you don't have to answer that.
All right.
If you receive it exactly after the message.
Okay. So
Right, so
that's
these are
two distinct red flags. What might be the third one?
Yes, the third one is that let's highlight again the very simplistic things, right? For the very persons that, yet again, they don't work in this area, so they are not on a daily task, they are doing this. Don't click on links without any knowledge of what you are doing. And this is not just on bank messages. On anything you are surfing the internet, you are going through your social media applications. So don't click on links that you don't know what they really look like.
So let's say that again. Do not click on any links. Bank of Valletta will not send you an SMS requiring to click on a link. I think these are very, very important
Perhaps, and the last
information.
point, Theo, if someone needs actually to check, right, we are spreading all over the island, we have branches across island, Malta and Gozo, so there's nothing wrong in just going to one of the branches or calling, asking to make sure that this is an authentic message or not. Right? And this is very basic. I was meeting, speaking with some other customers, which yet again, unfortunately, were defrauded. She told me that I received a message on an application, on a social media app, with a profile that looks like my son, exactly my son. So it's the picture that I used to see on the platform of my son, asking her that he just stopped with the car and he needs €100 to be able to take a taxi, etc. And to click on the link. And just click on the link, and this is where the fraud happened. Right, so my thought was that why you don't call your son, to make sure he's fine. First and foremost, not of course because of fraud, but these things, and yet again, these are simple things that people might be surprised that it's happening. If you have to see, you may Google this, right? Brad Pitt scam. You will be amazed, People are saying, but how this happened? But it happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right, that people might think you're talking with someone. We're seeing this in investment fraud. Very, I would say, people in the public domain. Of course, they don't know what's happening. They just someone creating a video about themselves. So it's a completely AI thing, completely fake thing. I'm telling them, I just saw one a few days ago about a particular public figure that he was doing a podcast, a true podcast, that was then taken out, and they were changing the words, what they were saying about investments. So it's like me and you doing the podcast.
And some,
If it's out there, it completely the same things, completely mimics our voices, mimics everything. But we're speaking about investment, me and you telling how good it is to invest there, and people, unfortunately, are believing that this is true. So another highlight to our peers, to what example that you have said, if someone sends you on your platform, telling to invest there, and potentially at the first minute you will start receiving some, because it's how fraudsters are gaining trust, don't do it, right? Because no one is there waiting for you to invest money.
but it's scary if you think about that someone, in that example can take, snippets of our voice and can create a complete
I will give you the link for this. Right?
different.
Not to do any unpaid adverts over here, to look it out yourself and to see how scary it is. And this, if you don't actually know what's really happening, then you start believing things.
So let me get this very, very clear, right? So it's not about being stupid. It's about being human, right? And scammers prey on emotion, urgency, fear, and shame, right? And we are taught.
And status.
And
And we'll explain why status.
All right. Because, as individuals, we are taught to be polite, helpful, quick to respond. So might be the way we fall for it, right? Because as you rightly said at the beginning, I also came across cases that people have been frauded, and they were CEOs, they were even lawyers. It can literally happen to everyone.
Definitely, and this is from where we started, right? Potentially, on one particular day, one particular time, we will be targeted for scam. Or we already are. And what I am really sad about, honestly, that I believe that if we look at our inner circle, families, immediate people, friends, partners, spouses, husband, whatever it is, potentially we already know someone that was defrauded.
Right here is another point, I would like to, to clarify, or just out of curiosity. People that have been frauded, do they openly speak about that?
Not always.
Not always.
Not always, and there is the shame, which there's nothing shame in it, but people might feel, how come, I was so sure I was speaking with someone yet again, I meet a number of people to understand what really is happening,
Right.
to understand, to be able to mitigate for that. I am so aware of fraud that I have 3 different cards. I use one to do my online things, I use one to be able to go shopping on a daily basis, and one for my savings.
All right.
Debate was that all of these cards are all on his mobile banking. So when he clicked on this message, unfortunately, the card that has most, the savings one, was from where money were taken. So and yet again, you mentioned that you don't have, not only the stupid people. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Right? And I'm seeing quite on the contrary, that people which of certain repute, people of certain status, when I say status, not always working there or because you are this or that, but also people which, for example, change their profile pages or they have written that lately they have lost their husband, their wife, so they are alone. In the next months, then they will be targeted for romance frauds.
So, and this is an important point I think we need to clarify. We're not talking only about scams that you might get an SMS.
Definitely not.
From your
And
bank,
just
right?
one off. This is one off.
Something that recently I was discussing with a friend. There are a lot of scams in dating profiles as well, right?
Definitely.
I mean, you think that you are talking with someone, and then they build sort of a connection, and that connection helps in the long run, and they are very well trained. So it doesn't happen very, very quickly.
Definitely.
It goes progressively.
It's spot on, and people may think, okay, so this is not a scam, no one is asking me for money. And I'm sure that people are experiencing this at the minute. So exactly what you're saying, they, first and foremost, they build trust. Right? They build trust, they keep on speaking with you, potentially they even might see them on the video. Yet again, it's all AI, it's all fake, this does not exist. So this is how they are building trust. At one particular moment, I had a very sad case, a woman was speaking, of course everything was fraudulent, was speaking with a doctor. She told her he's a doctor working in one of the war-torn countries at the moment, and he was sending her pictures of children. He was sending her pictures of and this country is completely at mess at the moment. So pictures were taken from the news outlets. So these pictures are easily obtained, right? And this woman started building a relationship with this guy. Then he started telling her that these kids don't have anything to eat. These kids are dying with hunger. So please send me some money so we're able to help them. And this money ending up in thousands of money that ended up in other jurisdictions, which are super difficult, nearly impossible to bring back. For obvious reasons, they ending up in a very high risk jurisdiction. Some are being even changed from fiat money to other sort of monies, sort of technological financial worlds, crypto, etc., bitcoins. So it will be definitely super difficult to get. So this is how trust is being built. Heard another thing on investment, for example, there was this man that he started investing with this guy, and he never met this guy. He told him, don't go to your bank because banks are there to take your money. I am the one that you'll start investing with. And for the past 6-7 months, he was investing money and he was getting a profit on those money. Yet again, in order to build trust. One particular day, he told him, there's a good investment, give me 200K, so we'll invest this amount just now, and in the next month, you will double that. There is no investment that you will double the money in 2 months. Right, let's be honest. And this is where the fraud happened once again. This is too good to be true. We're just touching on a number of different dynamics of fraud. We mentioned current fraud, we mentioned investment fraud, we mentioned romance fraud. Let's mention, perhaps even being aware of time, business email compromise. The fraud, which is affecting a number of business, unfortunately. And this is where we need to be able, the basic elements. We're speaking about the basic elements here. How this BEC fraud works. It is where there is 2 emails. There's someone at the other end speaking on business, sending invoices, sending money because of a service, of a product, right? Being a professional, being a notary, whatever it is. One particular time, this fraudulent individual, this fraudster, sent you an invoice that he created, which is exactly the same of the authentic one. The other person on the other end is taken out of the communication and they change your IBAN.
You're killing me.
Exactly like that. There's a number of, unfortunately, companies in Malta that were victims of this fraudulent activity, where then they send money to this IBAN because they never check IBANs, because they are usually Ryan and Theo send money together, so it's fine to send money to Theo, and then the money are ending up in different IBANs, etc. So what I am highlighting is that before sending especially huge amount of money, which for certain companies you do understand that they deal with huge amounts of money, but let's make sure that you are not saying something different from the usual things. And an IBAN is very different, as it's a very identifiable highlight. Another thing,
that was in Malta? Or?
In Malta, and we're seeing not one of this kind of frauds, right? There's a number of frauds happening. Another example.
This is insane.
Insane, and yet again, very basic for the fraudster to do, and very elementary for the customer to actually be a victim of. Something else to look at. Potentially, if I'm dealing with a Maltese company, potentially the bank account is in Malta. Right, and let's say potentially, because of course there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in having a bank account internationally, but potentially it is. So if I'm dealing with an Italian company, potentially the bank account, the IBAN is in Italy. So if you are start saying the country codes, right, which are different, then you already start saying why this company has that, IBAN, which is another jurisdiction. So the basic thing is, let's call, not by email. Why not by email? Because then you're speaking with the fraudster.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
So this is like the 2-way authentication. If I receive something by email which is different, let's call.
All right, very practical, even though we discussed just a checklist.
Sure.
I'm going to throw some scam myths at you, and you tell me if they are true or BS, right?
Hopefully I get them right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll discuss them just to make it practical, So, if it's from a number, I recognize it's safe. Myth, right?
If a number, it's safe. Definitely it's a myth. Definitely it can be a fraud. There's no numbers that are safe.
Banks will never call you.
No. That's a false. Banks will call you.
All right.
Bank of Valletta may call you, right? May call you for supporting documentation, may call you for an appointment.
But they
may
will
call
never
you.
call you for transactions, right?
They might call you for a transaction, but they will not ask you to go into mobile banking, do this and that. That is where it's a fraud, right? So if I'm taking a loan from the bank, they might call me, for the appointment. They might call me for the date of the contract, which is not
Right.
right.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong in that. But Bank of Valletta will never ask you for passwords. Bank of Valletta will never tell you that there was a fraudulent transaction. Please log into your mobile banking. Do this, do that. So this is where you start understanding that it is a fraud. And where earlier I said, then hang up.
All right. Another one. If you clicked the link but didn't type your password, you're fine.
Not always, no. Not always. It much depends in where you are in the process, right?
All right.
The earlier you stop, the better, right? But to give just the statement out, it's okay to click on the link. Potentially nothing wrong as yet, but much depends how the fraudster is working, what access you gave to the fraudster, etc. So there is different dynamics how it is working.
Let me give you that scenario, I mean, we are colleagues. I get a link, I realize, that probably I click on the link, I didn't type my password, I start panicking, I'm calling you, like, Ryan, what shall I do? I didn't type my password. Is it any practical action that I need to take?
Yes, definitely. I would say let's be more cautious. What I would do if it happens to me, I will just block my accounts, change my cards, and then I will restart my mobile banking and internet banking concept.
Right.
Just to be sure that, because again, I never know or never know what you did in those few minutes, few seconds, once you click in the link. Right? Prevention is better than cure. So let's do that.
You mentioned an interesting point before, which, if you allow me, I would like to be a bit provocative.
Of course.
Right? You said that fraudsters are very agile, and yet, they're always a step ahead. It seems like that. What happens with the agility of the banks in general when it comes to that front? Because now we are discussing about what the customer needs to do.
Definitely.
But there is the counter argument that what we need to do,
And
because we are not, sorry for stopping for a second,
okay.
it's not that we are only, dealing with money, we're dealing with trust, right? So what are we doing on our end in order to safeguard that we keep the trust and we also protect our customers?
Agreed.
So what happens to that agility in the banking industry?
Agreed, and just assured, even for us, for you, and for the people hearing this, we're doing a lot on this, and not just educating people what we are doing now, but also investing heavily on technology, investing heavily on AI, investing heavily on transaction monitoring, and in the first 6 months of this year, we have actually saved millions of money, around 1.6 million of fraudulent activities not being able to leave the bank. So we are also...
Say it again, the amount?
1.6 million.
Wow.
Right? And that shows what we are doing. Again, we are being even agile to exploring out-of-the-box expectations, which of course I'm not mentioning because earlier I said that fraudsters are also listening to this. So I don't want to give them that.
Just a message, this guy's gonna come and get you,
Most likely. But of course, Bank of Valletta are doing a lot of technological advancements, even not just on transactions, but even on how trust and expectation can be kept on highlighting. Yet again, Bank of Valletta and other institutions are fully focused on a number of elements. Fraudsters are just focused on fraud.
Right.
And this shows that, yet again, fraud it's here to stay.
Fraud is here to stay.
It's not something that after X months, X years, or whatever will do, it will leave. We are seeing this in other jurisdictions. Last year, there was huge amount of losses. I was reading an article earlier this week. In Europe only, there were 50 billion of money lost. I can share the article I was reading with you, right? So even you put it out there, nothing wrong in that. And 50 billion of money lost in Europe, only in many schemes.
Europe.
Right, so this shows the agility. This shows, I don't know how many money were saved, of course, because I work in these institutions, I am only aware of this institution. So, but I'm sure other institutions are doing equally things what we are doing. So this shows the risks that us, not our customers, us, because we are also customers of financial institutions, correct? So this is also us the risk that we are seeing to be able to be aware. Yet again, one of the best controls there is not what the banks are doing, because earlier I said that whatever we are doing, fraudsters are copying that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But the best control is me and you, our customers, people listening to this, not being able to click, to speak, to do what the fraudsters are telling them. And the best control is education and awareness. Because
Education.
not clicking, not listening, not doing what the fraudsters is telling me to do, definitely the fraud will never happen.
Yeah. So very true.
But not to do that, I need to be aware.
So let's get real here. I mean, realistically, nobody thinks that it's going to happen,
For sure.
to them until it does. So what we are saying is that it's not anymore like spam emails and so on. I mean,
Those
that's
were
quite,
things of the past.
it's like
Those were
outdated
things,
and
definitely those are things of the
old
past.
school.
You need people that will speak with you. You will have people that are sending you true looks like true expectations, people that are trying to make your life, it seems, easier, so you will trying to help you, but then it is where the scam will actually start.
All right. So it's sophisticated, it's psychological.
Definitely.
And the truth is that these scammers seems to be always, a step ahead, right? Always inventing new ways to scam. But after this enlightening conversation, I get some key takeaways which I would like to share with those that they are listening to that. So once you are receiving something that might be alarming or raises a red flag, here's the key takeaway, at least for me. Slow down, ask questions, sometimes trust your gut, call your bank, not the number in the message, just call your bank to make sure that this message is legit. And realistically, if something, deep inside feels off, probably is.
Don't do it, right? And yet again, earlier I said prevention is better than cure. So if you have this guy that you are highlighting, that you heard this, that you do this, but why the bank is asking you this, don't do it. Visit one of the branches, call on our customer care number, and it again, something that I earlier on last month we did a webinar, myself and the CEO, and there was a good comment that someone received this message that your card is blocked.
All right.
In order to believe if this was blocked or not, she said that she went to buy something with the card to see if it was blocked or not. And the card worked. So she confirmed that was a fraudulent message. Right, but the basic things.
Yeah, sometimes we need to
And
go
it was
back
a
to.
comment that strikes me, So there was this lady in her 60s. She received this message and said, "Okay, you know what I did to understand if it was a fraud or not? I used the card in one of my nearby shops, spent around 10 euros or something, and the card worked. So definitely the card was not blocked."
Well, I mean, Ryan, I think that was very, very enlightening, at least for me, and I really hope for everyone who is listening to us. So thanks again to Ryan. The long title, and
Again, it's Ryan. Ryan is nicer, right?
I completely agree. I mean, literally, this conversation blew my mind in terms that, I couldn't imagine certain frauds, and it seems that these guys are everywhere. So here's my suggestion to you. If you're listening to this episode, share it with your friends, with someone you love, because literally you can save them thousands of euros. And I think we need to close with a message that maybe, fraudsters are smart, but we are also.
Definitely.
So we are doing our best in order to safeguard, this trust, to keep this trust with our clients.
Definitely, and this is also part of one of our obligation at the end of the day. So we do value customer experience, we do value customers at the end of this. So we are obliged to do this. Rest assured that we are working on this actively. The bank is actively working on what we are doing, investing time, people, money in being able to keep on saving such. Yet again, we cannot do this alone because fraudsters are very interesting. Fraudsters are also have the technology to be able to do it. So we need to have a two-way approach ourselves and the customers themselves to educate them, to create awareness, not to be able to click on that or to be able to send money to people that they never met.
Thank you for making so human, so clear, and so practical. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise. Thank you.